Hello and welcome to today's episode of Platinum Talks Wealth. Emmy-nominated journalist Jennifer Rogers Markwell changed gears in her television career when she realized the need to help women make sense of investing. She regularly hosts educational workshops to empower women and others to take charge of their financial future. Now, join your host, Platinum Wealth Management President Jennifer Rogers Markwell, as she leads us into the world of money memories, money infidelities, and how these can mold our relationship with our personal finances as adults. Let's dive into today's episode.
Hi, it's Jennifer Rogers Markwell, and you're joining us on the Platinum Talks Wealth podcast. Thanks so much for making time to hang out with us today. And we're joined by Lev. Lev, thanks for making time.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate this very much.
Oh gosh, my pleasure. And I'm so glad we're doing this because we've been talking about this for some time. So, Lev, the first question I always ask is tell us all about you and why you do what you do.
I was born and raised in former Soviet Union and lived there till 1989 when I managed to immigrate to the United States. I planned to do this for a long time. So the road was not easy, but here I am. And I live in California since late 1989 and mostly in the Bay Area. And for the last 28 years, 27 to 28 years, I'm involved into money management. So that didn't come easy to me, but I guess it's evolved over the process. And as the industry evolves, so have I. And I guess I can predominantly describe myself as a person who tried to manage private clients' money with the institutional style, with the emphasis on the risk. That's who I am, in short.
Now, Lev, so I have the pleasure of knowing you, which is wonderful. When you grew up in Russia, was this ever in your mind of what you wanted to do as a career path when you grew up?
That's a great question. I was fascinated because grew up in Russia. It's a cash-only society. There is no such thing as a stock market. It was a planned economy. There was a central bank, central institution that distributed resources. So instead of stock market distributing resources and eliminating bad enterprises and raising a good one, we had a central planning committee that basically told how many tractors agriculture needs, how much butter need to be produced, how many movie theaters should be open. So there was no free market, or almost no free market. There was little like free market, mostly black market. But I was reading a lot of books by American writers about stock exchange. The one that particularly intrigued me was by Theodore Dreiser, the book about Chicago Stock Exchange, about the capitalism in the second part of 19th century. I believe his name was Frank Cowperwood, and it was fascinating to learn and to follow his life. But it still was completely everything unknown, terra incognita. So basically, I didn't know much, and for the first 5 years when I came to the United States as an immigrant, all my thoughts were how to survive, how to manage ends meet. So no idea about stock market. My first experience with the stock market was like $2,000 IRA contribution in 1996 or 1997. And then I stumbled across invitation from Merrill Lynch. They saw something in me, or maybe they just needed more people. And contrary to all kind of probability, I not succeeded. I survived. So that will be the right way to say. And over the course of these 30 years, I tried to spend as much time as possible to learn about stock exchange, about all the intrinsic of American economy, taxation, insurance, estate planning, but particularly stock exchange, because to me, it's a huge, still until now, it's a huge psychological black box that for the most part is unknown. So what we see with the stock market is an iceberg, and we see only the tip of the iceberg. And my role, as I always half jokingly say, is to be one-eyed man to lead the blind people. Sometimes I also act as a blind man. So that's what this long story of a short story that I never imagined to be having any association with the stock market when I grew up in Russia. But I was fascinated by this. To me, it was completely unknown.
And you bring up an interesting point. Your story, I think, is fascinating, truly, and I think listeners will find the same. How many hats we wear, right? So you're a counselor to some folks on the personal side of how to navigate things. We were just talking earlier when, you know, a spouse passes away, helping them navigate that and what that looks like and their financial goals and taking care of their family. There's so many different elements to what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, I guess the best thing we sometimes can do is do nothing but just listen, just be an emotional advisor. And we should be like a teacher, emotional advisor. To some extent, our role is almost as important as a family doctor, but specializing in the finance, because based on different reviews, finance is number 2 after the health. So what we're trying to do is to preserve health. And as doctors do, we not always have a good recipe, or not always can provide or like heal from any disease, but we need to do the best in the interests of our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with you on that. So another thing that we talk about here on the podcast are money memories. What's a money memory that you had as a young person or teenager that really kind of sticks in your mind, but also helped mold your relationship to money as an adult?
That's an interesting question, and it's a good one. Once again, it's all rooted in the way how household in Soviet Union run the money. First of all, we didn't have any credit cards. Credit was limited. Yes, you can go and apply, and I was applying for credit line to buy color TV, my first color TV in 1980 something, only 70 maybe something, 1980 something. But the credit was sparse. The credit was tightly regulated. Yes, we had savings account. We had something similar to CD. We didn't have checking book, but you can go to the, which is very typical in Europe, to like in Germany, they have like post office bank. Basically, you can go and deposit your part of your salary, and there is a interest that grows up, and you can take money. Or if you give money to the government for 3-6 months, you get a high percentage. But that's it. No stocks. Bonds were basically only government bonds, and they were forced on you. When government needed money, they basically took money from you and promised to pay you like 20-30 years later. And most of the time they did, but sometimes they did not. So the budget was run by cash, by person in charge. We put our like money into the jar or into the shelf, and then people take money from there and buy groceries, buy like people save for like sometimes 2-3 years to buy furniture or household items. It can take 3 to 5 years to save money to buy a very small car, like something like Fiat, Russian version of Fiat. And we need to stay in line to buy a refrigerator, because it also was limited, because government planned how many refrigerators you need. And it say if there is not enough refrigerators, people go to the store and apply either in line or wait until they receive a postcard from them. Yes, your line is 300,027. So most likely you will get it like in 2 years from now. If you're lucky, or if you know someone, if you bribe, you can get it quicker. So we have black market for this too. So that's how it worked. I wouldn't say that people starved, no, but ration was limited, and many people who immigrated to United States saw like kiwi or avocado or bananas for the first time in their life. They didn't have it. So money was paid by the enterprises. Taxes were withdrawn directly. Most of the time, it was a flat tax, like 14 to 15%. People without kids paid more taxes, and no taxation. That's it. I mean, sorry, no, how I would say, no tax reporting on April 15. So basically, we don't need to do this. You just all done, square and fair. So
Flat tax are kind of across the board.
flat tax across the board, yes. So yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
So life was simple from a financial point.
Yeah, you had shared with me kind of the waiting in lines for food and different things too. And it's, I mean, that I hear that and I try to visualize that. I mean, we are obviously very blessed, you know, in America with being able to walk into a grocery store from comparably from your story of waiting in line for food.
Sometimes I stayed in line for 40, 50 minutes to get the milk, fresh milk, for my just born daughter in 1983, 84. Or like you need to know some connections through the food distribution center, pay like market price, maybe 3 times more, 2 times more, and then you bypass the line. So and people got agitated, angry. There were fights in the lines often. So it was a country of abundant resources, but limited efficiency, how to distribute these resources. So obviously the capitalism is the answer. What kind of capitalism? Scandinavian, French, or American? It's a matter of discussion, but obviously it's not the planning system, how it was. That's why Soviet Union collapsed.
Thank you so much for sharing, Lev. I appreciate your insight and just sharing your memories.
Of course, of course. I have a lot of these memories. Now, over the course of 30 years, you kind of forget about day-to-day, I wouldn't call them struggles, day-to-day deprivation, but, and you obviously appreciate what you have in normal country like United States. But back there and back then, we didn't know other life. You can only read or watch American movies. You say, oh my God, American family has 3 TVs, or they drive such a lovely car. While like in 1978, maybe only 6% of Russian citizens, Soviet Union citizens, had cars. The rest was public transportation. On the good thing, public transportation was good. Yeah. But to have a personal car, it's only like you need to be the rich, or have connections, or save money for 3 to 4, 5 years to buy a very modest car. So that's how we lived.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you for sharing. That's super fascinating. And again, from my perspective, never seeing that, just hearing your stories is so eye-opening.
That's why sometimes I don't understand when people think that socialism is a solution. No, they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
Maybe,
and you've experienced it firsthand.
Yeah, absolutely.
So another thing we talk about on the podcast are financial infidelities, which can mean different things to different people. And it can be a big, scary, you know, hairy word in conversation. What's a financial infidelity, Lev, that you've either experienced or that you've witnessed that you think others could learn from?
I think coming to United States, I learned the first thing that you need to invest in yourself, be vigilant, be both a saver and investor. Invest in yourself and save for unpredictability.
You are listening to the Platinum Talks Wealth Podcast.
Hey, it's Jennifer. I wanted to take a quick break to remind you that you are worthy to have a seat at the table when it comes to money and your finances. We, both me and my team at Platinum Wealth Management, want to meet you where you are, whether you're starting out, starting over, or have been investing for years. Reach out to us at platinumwealth.net or call us at 775-717-0001. We'd be honored to help.
And now, back to the podcast.
It's very difficult to change your mentality from almost guarantee but very mediocre life back in Soviet Union to come to United States and live with the market. Employment market, stock market, even like what we took for granted back in Soviet Union, health insurance. At that time when I came, it wasn't guaranteed. If you lose your job, you need to apply for this or buy on the open market. So it was completely foreign subject. So working with clients and knowing some personal stories, I can see that and like attest that not everyone was up to the test, up to the task. And many people, probably more than I wanted, lost their money during the dot-com bust or when they were trying to get rich quickly. So that's probably the recipe to disaster, like day traders, people who try to invest in one stock, hoping not every stock will be NVIDIA or Microsoft or Amazon. And Amazon at some point was $2 per share. So that's probably one of the infidelities, when people too greedy without consideration what would happen if they lose this money. The second was I observed when people neglected healthcare, and that cost them dearly. So that's when people, like the first thing we did in our family, we decided we live without credit card debts. So the only debt we do have is a mortgage, which is manageable. And it's a pure mathematical decision. The interest rate is so low. So hopefully on the stock market, we can make double of it. So basically, so it's calculated risk. There are like different type of risk, calculated and maybe imaginable or like unfounded risk. So many people, unfortunately, that's why I'm so fascinated with the word risk. People are, for the most part, not adequately manage risk and measure risk. Measure risk is easier. Manage risk is much more difficult because there is so much emotions. And you see like everyone making money on, for example, on NVIDIA or gold or like whatever, Bitcoin. So they go there and mass crowds are almost always wrong. If not wrong, they are late to the game.
Yeah, no, you bring up a good point. And with risk too, it's not, back in the day, it was like, you're this age, your risk should look this way. Now I find too, I mean, it's an individual thing for sure. It's not based on an age. It's not based on a ethnicity. It's based on the individual person of like, what are you comfortable with? What are your goals? What does it look like? What does risk mean to you? Because it means something different to everyone.
Absolutely. And there is a huge intellectual and psychological difference between life of an average American and life of average European living in capitalist countries, market economy such as France or Germany. Average German, he has almost predictable life because higher pension, less mobility, government has much bigger role and involved more. That's why the average portfolio of a German is 85% of guarantee products like CD, money market, insurance product, and only 15% in the stock market. And the pension is decent compared to Social Security. So there is no need for them to buy private pension through 401k. While we need to do this, and we need to manage this correctly, or at least try to do it wisely. So it puts more pressure, more on decision makers like we are, or like people who do this without advisor help. So our life is more challenging, but give us more opportunity. And it's very different from European countries, where investments is probably only for really wealthy people, or investments represent only a small portion. And we're having investment culture in the United States. That's why we have Google, Tesla, all kind of like successful startups, private equity, everything. They are the company of savers. We have investment culture, they are banking culture. Nothing wrong with this. Insurance dominates there, banks dominated there. By definition, they're much more conservative and more slow. It saves probably sometimes during the crisis, but it doesn't produce Google, Microsoft, Apple, and others. So like in our S&P 500, 37% is represented by technological sector. In Europe, it's maybe 10 to 12%. So it's a huge difference. We are growth investors, they are value investors. So it's interesting. It's how Europeans are from Venus and Americans are from Mars.
That's funny.
Different approach to the risk, yeah. So,
well, good. So as we start to wrap the conversation, one thing I like to ask is, what are tips and or tricks that you use to utilize money differently in your own household?
first of all, listen to my wife. Never argue. But she delegates money management to me, which is good. But she, compared to me, she is a risk taker in a good sense. I'm kind of modest in my aspirations, where to live, how to live, to some extent what to drive. I mean, but she is the one who expires more. So I leave major decisions which house we go. Most of the time, it's a collegial decision, but she is an inspirator. I'm a follower there. But when it comes to like managing money, I guess I have my say in this. So basically, but we hardly ever disagree. But we both hate debt. We both hate to go to bed knowing that there is outstanding bill and we forgot to pay or we owe this. So we still remember the times when like tips from delivering pizza, $20 were enough for me and two children and my wife to go to the movie theater and even have some popcorn. So for now, it's just, I would say, beyond our imagination, the lifestyle we can afford, but that's not the key. The safety, security, and we're not spoiled by money, and the opportunity to help environment, help community, help grandkids. That's the key. And feel comfortable knowing that you will not be on the streets. So that was a huge lesson we learned in the United States through trial and errors. But for the most part, being prudent helped us.
And it sounds like really communicating and making sure you're on the same page. So important.
Yes, communicating, letting my wife speak for 87% of time, and me saying, yes, dear, and then adding 12% of time. Yes. No, sometimes we have disagreements, obviously, yeah. Because when it comes to big decisions, not stock market, I am more conservative because my wife, and it's a good thing, she does not see negative results. For her, everything the same as my stepson. And to some extent, my daughter as well. I always, because I'm a risk manager and risk measurer, I always calculate what's the probability, what's the risk, what if it doesn't go, what if such, and this is maybe detrimental to long-term risky decisions. But I guess there were cases when I was right and when she was right.
But I think having the open communication to share that together, I think that's where the magic happens in relationships, in my personal humble opinion, right? When you can communicate openly with someone and know that you're both valuing and listening to each other, that's so important.
Absolutely, especially because she is a financial person on the more corporate finance, and she has a different set of skills than I do. And I have a different view, like a view on the life from a different angle she has from you. So we complement each other.
That's fantastic. Well, Lev, thank you so much for making time to chat with me today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And hopefully those of you watching or listening will join us on the next Platinum Talks Wealth podcast.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, Platinum Talks Wealth, please subscribe and share. For more information about Jennifer Rogers Markwell or Platinum Wealth Management, please visit www.platinumwealth.net. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member of FINRA and SIPC. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. The guest speakers and their companies are not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or Platinum Wealth Management.